Welcome back into the Rowdy Studios where Buzz Cutler and Bassmasters are ready to talk Phoenix. Remember, this isn't the Phoenix you knew and loved for years. This is the newly reconfigured, repaved Phoenix that we saw last fall, Bass.
Well, anytime you repave a racetrack, what do? You get more grip. And when you get more grip, you get more speed, and that's what we've got out in Phoenix. I still think some of the basics are true at this place. It's a big, short track. It's very fast now, but I still think you can look at your short track guys. It's still similar to Richmond, still similar to New Hampshire. It's just not as slick as it used to be. I would still look at those guys.
So, if we're talking keys, I guess the first key would be getting through the corner and forward bite off of the corner.
Yeah, I think so. Now, obviously, you don't have that lack of grip, you know, stopping the car, getting it turned, getting back on the gas that you used to have. But still, handling's a big key at this place. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
And you have to compromise on the corners because they're not mirrors of one another. Each end of the racetrack is slightly different, so you can't set up ideally for both corners at one time.
Typically, that's right. You know, 3 and 4 is kind of the loose end of the track and has been over the years. 1 and 2 is the tight end. So if you're neutral in 1 and 2, you're going to be loose in 3 and 4 and vice versa. So yes, some compromise is definitely required. And brakes, I think, is the other thing that could be an issue here. It's become an issue out of Richmond. It's an issue at New Hampshire. And when you're generating more speed going into the corner, that puts more wear and tear on the brakes. So I think brakes is a key to this track now as well.
What we did see back in the fall, atypically of newly paved tracks, is that we did see the groove widen out. We did get a little bit of a second groove towards the middle and end of that race. And remember now, with the new dog leg extended out on the backstretch, guys are coming off of turn 2 and then diving down.
Well, it's an elevation change.
It's a big time elevation change, so you look for guys to dive down off of that dog leg and really go onto the apron and below the yellow line in order to pass people on the inside.
Yeah, it's become a really, I think the repave, like you say, has made this a little racier racetrack. Not quite as much of a track position track. And we've seen over the past couple of years that what's happened is the big, wide, fast tracks have become more track position tracks than the short tracks. And now this is not a typical short track, because it's a little bigger than really what a real short track is, but it still races a lot like a short track.
Yeah, it's a mile, so I wouldn't, it's certainly
not. But unlike Dover, which is sort of like a smaller super speedway, this is more like a bigger short track.
Like a bigger Richmond,
exactly,
for instance.
Compared to Richmond. And when you look at it that way, you have to like guys like, well, Casey Kane won his first race of his Cup career at Richmond. He has won this race too. He won on the newly paved surface in the fall.
He won last fall, right?
So
who
you got to look at him. You got to look at Jimmy Johnson. You got to look at Denny Hamlin. You have to look at Dale Jr., who's been good at this track and is good at Richmond. Tony Stewart's another guy that springs to mind.
I'll give you a couple other names that may not be at the top of your list.
How about A.J. Allmendinger?
A.J. Allmendinger was going to be one of them because he started on the front row at this track. I think 3 of the last 4 races.
Yeah, he's got a feel for this place.
2 top 10s in a row going into this race. A.J. Allmendinger. The other guy I would say to look at is Ryan Newman. He's got something like 4 top 5s in a row. This is one of his favorite tracks.
When you think of New Hampshire, you think of Ryan Newman. Richmond, Newman has been good, especially early in his career. Newman was very good at Richmond. So yeah, I agree with you, Ryan Newman. Jeff Gordon is another guy I like here.
Yeah, but he was so bad in the fall race. He finished 32nd in the fall.
But now, you know, they've got Casey Kane on that team. What can they learn from what Casey did last year in the fall over at Hendrick? That's why I do like Jeff. I like Jimmy and
Jeff
Casey.
Is one of the few guys that I've heard really...
And Junior. I like all the Hendrick cars.
Jeff is one of the few guys I've heard who really doesn't like the reconfiguration of the track, though. So I'm a little cold on Jeff Gordon, but if you had to pick one guy to win this race, who's your pick?
You know, it's funny. I've heard Denny Hamlin out of a couple people. Jimmy Johnson seems like the whole world's against him right now. But this is pretty much his best track when you get right down to it. Now, I know it's different than what it has been when he earned all those wins here, but I like Jimmy. I just do.
And I like Denny. Remember that Denny's got Darian Grubb. Darian Grubb guided Tony Stewart to, I think, a 3rd place finish here in the fall. Plus, Denny lived...
we should mention Carl Edwards.
Yes.
We should mention Carl Edwards.
He finished 2nd in the fall.
And remember, in the other year that he almost won the championship, he was very good at Phoenix.
He is good at Phoenix.
Now, this is not a typical Carl Edwards type of racetrack, but the fact that he had it so dialed in last year is a good sign.
Yeah, so you're going with, Jimmy. I'm going with Denny, but any of those other guys are good picks too.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.